Hey guys, Matt Freeman from ewoodart.com coming at you from Gold Hill, Oregon with the weekly barrel review. This week we've got 10 barrel Apocalypse IPA. Very good. One of my favorites. Though I cannot say that I'm 100% sure it's barrel aged. The name of their brewery has barrel in it, so that's why we're drinking it on the show today. Today we've got in store for you a kind of short show, more condensed. We stopped by Quality Wine Barrels down in Arroyo Grande. I was on a road trip down there, and I used to work for Roger Burson, and I stopped in and talked to Roger, and Roger gave us a little bit of history about his business, Quality Wine Barrels, how it started, and it's a very kind of cool story about how Quality Wine Barrels got started. Roger Burson and Pedro Meza started it together, and check this video out, and Roger will tell you about the barrel brokerage business.
I'm Roger Burson, the founder of Quality Wine Barrels Company, formerly known as Meza Barrels. I started this business with my partner Pedro Meza, and so we named it Meza Barrels Company, and both of us were working at Meridian at that time, and we were involved in selling off Meridian's barrels, and Meridian was owned by Beringer, so I was selling off at that time in the order of 250,000 barrels. And Pedro got the idea that he'd buy some of them and cut them in half and sell them as planters on the side. And it turned out that it was very lucrative for him, and he continued to do that to the point where he came into my office one day and quit because he was making more money doing that than he was working as a team leader at Meridian. And he asked me if I would join him and start a business. And that was January 1st, 2004. We opened a bank account to start the business. And then it grew and grew to the point where I left my regular employment, and both of us were working full time and hiring employees, and grew from there. And now we're 11 years into this, and still going gangbusters. And at that time we were doing half barrel planters, only half barrel planters, and the only other company doing this was Barrels Unlimited and Real Wood, and they were doing half barrel planters. Well, Pedro and I got into reselling the barrels to winemakers because we had a harvest with high yields and wineries needed barrels. So we started selling the barrels back to the wineries. And as far as I know, we're the first company that started selling barrels back to wineries after we inspected them to make sure they were still in good shape. And since then, there's been many brokers come into the market. So now there's competition in the selling back to the wineries. We got into the breweries, and that's probably good 10 years ago. There's a local brewery in San Luis Obispo called Tap It, and they approached us and said that they were interested in doing some barrel-aged beers, and that's the first time we had even heard of that. And we sold a handful of barrels to breweries back in the day. And now it's probably getting close to half of the barrels we sell are to breweries now, because that took off with the microbreweries. The oak-aged beer, oak-fermented beer just took off, and now pretty much all the microbrews need to have barrels in the program, and that's been great for us. Then there's the distilleries, so we got into whiskey barrels, which are slightly different than wine barrels. There's wine barrels are Burgundy or Bordeaux style primarily, and these are 59, 60 gallon. The whiskey barrels are a little bit smaller, they're about 54 gallon. And the whiskey distilleries on the East Coast use them for a far longer period of time. So your typical wine barrel becomes neutral after about 4 or 5 years. Whiskey barrels, they may have the whiskey in the barrel for 20, 30 years. So when we get the whiskey barrels in, they're usually a lot rougher, a lot older. The rings are completely rusted. So we got a whole bunch of whiskey barrels in, and sold most of them off as planters. But then we found out that the breweries also like to use whiskey barrels. The breweries are really leading the charge with experimentation with different types of barrels that impart flavors to the beer that are desirable. Whereas for the winemakers, they're not really into experimentation. I mean, they've been doing it thousands of years, and they know how they want it done, and they don't really want whiskey flavor in the wine, or tequila flavor in your Chardonnay. It's just not a good idea. Yeah, we don't do a lot of that. But that's become not a big part of our business, but selling back to distillers, selling those barrels back to distillers, or selling whiskey barrels to breweries has become part of the business too. So it really has diversified and changed quite a bit since we started in 04.
If you need a barrel that's been inspected and you want to make sure that it's clean and good to use, those are the guys to call. This next video is, I was on YouTube the other day, and I can't even believe that this actually happened. Little bit of curiosity kind of makes me think, could we do this with wine barrels? I don't know. They weigh 100 pounds, and these plastic, I don't know if these are steel or plastic or what, but check this out. Yeah, I pretty much think you have to be crazy to do that. We're not going to try that with a wine barrel anytime soon. At least, I take that back. You drink a 6-pack of these and you might end up doing something like that. They're pretty strong. All right, well, until next week, stay tuned. We'll have another episode of the Weekly Barrel Review. Check out our other video series that we just started. It's expert woodworking tips with Matt, me, and you'll see my other personality.